The National Investor's motto is, you can get information anywhere, but here you get knowledge. And for well over 40 years now, Chris Temple has imparted that knowledge, an unparalleled, understandable, and useful take on the big picture of the markets and of our world. He has been out in front of what you see on the news every day on many themes. More, Chris has taken this macro knowledge and his unique analytical abilities to uncover unique investment opportunities. Often, he has guided his members to big winners in resources, biotech stocks, and more. His talents and connections often getting him into ground floor opportunities before they are discovered. Without further ado, here is Chris with today's topic.
Welcome back, folks. Today we're going to catch up with one of my older friends and colleagues in the mining industry, David Wolfin. He is the CEO of Avino Silver and Gold Mines Limited, which, as you see here, is listed on both the Toronto and New York Stock Exchanges under the symbol ASM. Take note here as well of their website and etc. to make sure that you follow them, get on their mailing list. If you're not familiar with the company, kick the tires, etc. Now, before I bring David on, the usual preliminary, he and or myself might be making what are construed as forward-looking statements, so be aware of that. I will say this, however, that those who listened to our last video discussion some while ago are pretty happy today at forward-looking statements or not, because Avino has been one of the single best performers that I know of junior producers. It's a primary silver company. They produce gold and copper as well. But as you see here, Avino's share price since its 52-week low has very nearly tripled as of this Easter week shortened trading week is concerned. This, of course, is Thursday and today's close itself. Now, a lot of things have gone right. The Avino project is doing very, very well. They just came out with some great numbers recently for 2024. Everything was a record. The revenues or cash flow, gross profit, etc. They had very strong earnings. And just yesterday, on the 16th, Wednesday, they came out with their production numbers for the first quarter, which will be followed about a month from now by the official financials for Q1. And here again, the company's doing very well, increases almost across the board as far as metal production. Overall silver equivalent production, as you see here, was up by 8%, with higher increases for both copper and for gold. And bottom line is, and one of the reasons why Avino has recaptured or captured anew, as the case may be, the attention of investors, is because they are well on their way to their game plan of transitioning from a junior to an intermediate producer by the end of the decade, as you see here. And I'll ask David to give us a little bit more color and update on this. They'll go from what it's planned to be about 2.6 million silver equivalent ounces this year up closer to 8 to 10 million ounces by the end of the decade. So as I tell people all the time, mining companies are companies too. You'll hear me say it again, perhaps when David is on here. And it's nice to have sexy exploration stories. It's nice to have nice drill holes and assays. But at the end of the day, when you can monetize it, when you can turn it into dollars and cents, revenue and earnings, that's increasingly what you need to do today to get the attention of the markets. And Avino has done that well. But even beyond that, one of the reasons this has always been one of my favorite stories, it's a family business. David's father, Lou, started this mine over 50 years ago. It's got a great history in the Durango, Mexico area. A lot of locals have had now two and maybe now into the third generation that has worked for this company. They've done well in the local community. And that is so much so that nearly a decade ago, the big Korean electronics company, Samsung, approached David and said, hey, we're hearing from our competitors that it's a bigger deal these days to be able to demonstrate that our materials that go into our smartphones and whatnot and tablets are ethically sourced, that they come from good places, not from slave labor, not from poor environmental practices. We love you and we love your story. And so Samsung now buys pretty much all the concentrates from Avino. And here's one of the greatest pictures you're going to see anybody put out in this industry. And this was a year or so ago when Avino was able to give back to the schools and whatnot in the local community in Durango, tablets, smartphones, TVs, and so forth, manufactured by Samsung in part by metals that were mined in their community, that employed parts of the community, etc. It doesn't get any better than that in a mining story. And again, this is one of the reasons that the stock has done so well, but I think it's got a lot of upside, as you're going to hear, especially when their second contributor to production, La Preciosa, that they bought from Coeur Mining a few years ago, gets added to the mix before too long. They just put out some news at the beginning of the year, of course, on La Preciosa that now it's fully permitted. They're starting the underground work there, and very likely before 2025 is over, they're going to be adding that ore to the mix at Avino as well. So all around, it's a great, solid story. They don't get any more fundamentally sound than this one. And it's been a great privilege and profitable for our folks at the National Investor to know the Wolfin family for so many years now. And here is my good friend of a lot of years, David Wolfin, the CEO of Avino. David, it's great to catch up, especially on the back of yet more great news for the company.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, just yesterday, we're recording this on Thursday, just before Easter. Yesterday, on Wednesday, you came out with your first quarter production numbers, showing that you're on track again to meet your guidance for the year. You've got increases pretty much across the board, and going toward a run rate of 2.5, 2.6 million silver equivalent ounces for 2025. And as of now, that's still all from Avino, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of that and your ongoing development work at La Preciosa, which you closed on just over 3 years ago now, you bought that from Coeur, and that's going to be added to the production mix before too much longer. I want to ask about Mexico first, because there's a lot of political turmoil in the world. There's trade and tariff turmoil in the world. And when Claudia Sheinbaum was elected overwhelmingly, of course, which was no shock, to replace her mentor in most respects, AMLO, back some months ago. The book on her, I think, turned out to be correct, that she's not an ideologue, certainly in any way, shape, or form like AMLO was. She's a very much a pragmatist and wants Mexico to be a prosperous country. And as far as the mining sector, everything is pretty much still open for business, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we got our permits, so that says it all. And I think that was a big catalyst for us, because a lot of people were waiting to see what would happen with, under her reign. So, I mean, it shows that Mexico is open for business, and we started mining immediately following. So the market's happy to see that.
Yeah, and that was only what it was in March of 2022 that you closed on that deal with Coeur. And then you went through got the community consultation, did the whole deal, and now you're fully permitted. And you announced back in January of this year that you've started the underground process. I saw it reminded me of a couple of my grandsons that are interested in the mining business, because I've taken them on tours. They as soon as they knew they could blow stuff up, they said, "Oh, I want to be in that business." And so I got a kick out of your video that you put out on social media and whatnot, the first explosions, as it were, as you're
Yeah.
starting to break ground underground and so forth at La Preciosa. So give us a flavor of what the timeline is from here. You're doing the underground development. You're going to be adding to the mix at Avino as far as production, hopefully, but before 2025 is over, correct?
That's correct. So it's about 350 meters to get to the two veins we're going to start mining on, La Gloria and Abundancia. Our plan is to start pulling out about 500 tons per day. And in our mill, we've got 4 circuits, and the first 2 can do 500 tons per day. So we're going to shift the mix. We'll reduce the ore from Avino and increase more ore from La Preciosa. And it'll have a big impact next year. We're expecting 30 to 40% increase in our output just because of the higher grade.
Wow, that'll be great. And of course, eventually, and this is a big part of the reason for that stock chart that I showed before you came on and how well Avino has been rewarded in the market recently. Everybody gets the story now that you're on the road to graduate from a junior producer to an intermediate producer. Yeah, exactly. And approaching more like 10 million silver equivalent ounces per year by
Sure.
the end of the decade.
Yeah. I mean, this year will 49% of our revenue will come from silver, 19% from gold, and 31% from copper. But it's going to go up over 70% in the next few years just because of the grade, the higher grade silver. At La Preciosa, 90% of the vein is silver, 10%
Okay.
is gold. So it's really going to shift the mix, and the focus is going to come on us because there's two less silver producers out there with Gatos and Silvercrest gone. So
Right.
spotlight's on us now.
Yeah. And there's not that many, and you're not a primary silver producer, but a predominantly silver producer right now.
Predominantly, but primary, it depends on the revenue. So
Right.
we're 49, we're going over 50. So that's considered primary.
Sure.
So,
Sure. What's really cool though, going down the road and away from La Preciosa back to the Avino mine proper, one of the more exciting things in the recent times that you put out some while ago was some of the drilling that you're doing in the deepest area you've ever drilled at Avino. You're hitting more and more copper the deeper you go.
that's
And
correct.
give us a little bit of an update on that because I know one of the things that you've been looking at, you've hired some structural geologists, I think it was, to get your head around what you might be sitting on top of, whether it's a big porphyry system, whatever it is. This is
Yeah.
getting better the farther down you go, isn't it?
Well, it's intriguing. I mean, we have two world-renowned structural geologists helping us try to figure that out. And basically, they said just keep drilling. So that's what we're doing. We've completed one hole this year so far, waiting on the results. But we've seen traces of porphyry, we've traces of skarn, VMS. So there's three different types of models that could be down at depth. So it's interesting. And because we acquired La Preciosa, and we combined all the geological resources, they add up to about 76 million tons. And at a current run rate, that's 100 years of mine life. So we know that we're not going to wait 100 years. We're going to want to reimagine the operation, possibly beyond what we've laid out now, because our growth plan was prepared prior to the rally. So now we're thinking, maybe 8 to 10 million could be small, So in order to decide when to retain an engineering firm to help us with that, we got to drill it off. We got to drill the obvious areas. Otherwise, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not doing that, because we may want to change the mining style at Avino. Right now, we haul the material out, but we have a service shaft. We may want to repurpose it for hoisting if there's a lot more material down, which will save a lot of money. And so this is why we're drilling it as well.
Sure. Well, yeah, if you end up coming to that, and I remember we had this conversation before, you're not sending vehicles back and forth down ramps and switchbacks and so forth. You're just going to pull it out vertically if it comes to that. So down the road, as you're going, again, your target by the end of the decade is 8 million plus silver equivalent ounces on the way to 10 and maybe higher down the road. Where might there be bottlenecks? What else are you going to have to do? I know that you've got all the different circuits at the mill right now. What kind of upgrades might you be looking at?
Well, right now, there's no bottleneck at the Avino mine. We're hauling out more than we're processing. So that's a good thing.
Good.
So we'll probably do another expansion at some point in the mill, possibly another 1,000 tons per day. We're doing 2,500 tons per day. So that would take some time. The oxide tailings project, that's going to take some time, and that requires a cyanide permit. So that's not a guarantee, but that's a possible bottleneck. But a way around all that is to go bigger at La Preciosa. So now we got the permit. We're considering amending it and maybe put in more portals because the grade is so fantastic. If we could shift the mix even more from 500 tons per day to 1,500 tons per day in our mill, we wouldn't have to spend a whole lot of money to do that, and it would have a huge impact on the output and the earnings.
Sure.
The earnings would go like I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but it would be pretty substantial.
Well, you wouldn't have, yeah, proportionally to add more tons, you wouldn't have to lay out a whole lot of money then.
Yeah, yeah. And if you look at what we put out in Q4, we had 24.4 million revenue. So that was fantastic. Gross profit margin was 43%, cash operating margin 49%. Our all-in sustaining was 1862. For the year, it was 2057. So we think this year is going to be in between that, between 18 and 20. But next year, with the higher grade, it should lower it to the mid-teens. And then
Nice.
with the oxide tailings on a standalone basis, that's $10 all-in sustaining costs. So that could combine and lower our all-in sustaining to the low teens in 5 years. And who knows where gold and silver will be. But at today's rates, it's going to produce a lot of cash.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Give me a quick update too on the oxide tailings project. When you might be looking at trying to get that thing permitted. I know that that's still it's not the highest priority. The highest priority is getting La Preciosa up and running.
Yeah.
But
Because
after,
again, when we put together the plan, it was when we didn't have a lot of cash. So
right.
we may look to move it forward, but we're considering maybe a construction decision in 2026. This year, we're doing community engagement. We're probably going to do a final feasibility study, so then we can finance it the traditional way, possibly through a bank, or who knows where our cash position. Because when I look at the capex from the pre-feasibility study, it's $49 million. We've got 30 in the bank, and
Right.
so by 2026, we may have all the money in the bank and not have to go raise anything.
Wow, that'd be awesome if you could
Yeah.
self-fund that thing. And I think you'd be rewarded for that too. I don't see, base metals have kind of backed off a little bit, but they're kind of equilibrium. Silver has got dragged up a little bit with gold. Of course, whatever gold you're producing, it's just salad
It'll,
days right
it'll
now.
catch up, I think. Because the uncertainties in the world right now,
Right.
people are just going to gold. But by gold being over 3,000, all the gold producing companies are going to be gushing in cash.
Yes.
So they're going to probably boost their dividends. That's going to attract investors, and that will trickle down eventually to the mid tiers and then to the juniors.
Yep.
So gold's hanging in there. Who would have thought it would be where it is right now? I mean,
Well, that's
we're
for sure.
above it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And it is bringing people back. What's remarkable, and I've talked more in the isolated, somewhat context of gold, but this gold move that we've had for the last year now that just keeps getting stronger and stronger, most of that has come along with virtually no investment interest in the Western world, chiefly the US. That's finally started to change. You're some evidence of that, even though you're not a gold-centric company, and you're especially the evidence of that, as I said at the outset, with what a lot of the returning investors want right now. And, fancy drill results and fancy stories are one thing, but at the end of the day, it's show me the money,
Who
you
can
know,
monetize it the quickest? You have to have an
right?
operation that the explorers can't. We can. So,
Yeah.
yeah, show me the money. Yep, exactly. And we're showing it with our Q4 earnings.
Oh,
That was, and you got to think the rally started a year ago, March. So Q4 was probably the best quarter for our industry. Q1's not even out yet. So,
right.
I mean, give it a few more quarters and then people are going to flood in. But
Yeah.
don't wait. We're going to pay higher prices.
Yep, that's very true. And I mean, you guys even now you're triple roughly or nearly triple from your 52-week low now. You're one of the best performers out there, and that still doesn't reflect, I think, what the long-term story is, frankly, for Avino. And I want to end on a really cool note that I mentioned at the beginning. I want you to add a little bit more color to this because I've said to people a lot, and you and I had talked about this before, that when all is said and done, the world needs to understand why we have mining in the first place. And when you nearly a decade ago entered your deal with Samsung, the big global electronics maker, and they started buying your concentrates to produce smartphones and tablets and stuff like that. and you a short while back, and I'll put a couple of the pictures here on the screen again as we're talking. You were able to donate to the local schools and community a lot of these things that were Samsung products containing metals that were mined there right in their backyard. Maybe some of the parents and grandparents actually work for the company. I mean, this is where it all means something. And
Definitely.
so you've had this agreement now with Samsung for a while, and apparently it's going to stay as is. And even as you increase production, they still want pretty much all of it or the lion's
They
share.
want life of mine, they've asked for.
Wow.
So our agreement, I think, goes until 2026. So, but they want to extend it. There's no demand slowing for electronics. I
No.
mean, we met 10 years ago and at the European Gold Forum, and they said that Apple and Intel know where the source of the raw materials come from. Because they have ethical funds that own their stock, they didn't want it getting out that they derived from slave labor type operations. And I said, what does that have to do with Avino? Well, your father started the company in 1968. You're still there. You must be doing something, right? You must be an ethical company if you're still there. And they said, Samsung is a family-run business. So they said, we have synergies, and they've been watching us. And they said, if you're patient, we can make an agreement. And it took about a year. We got $10 million up front. We expanded the mill. We've since paid them back, but we still deliver them about 900 tons of concentrate a month. And they want more. The appetite for products is growing. They want more. They said they're looking for 10 more Avinos.
Wow, that's something. And that's really a testament to the fact that you've been a family-run business for a half century plus now. Your dad started it. I remember how impressed I was the first time I visited down there and saw the great plaque that they have to your father. And folks, I talk a lot of times about the different themes you look at when you're looking at individual companies to invest in. You want to bet on good jockeys, and you and your dad did a lot for our subscribers too, not only with Avino over the years, but with Coral Gold, one of his exploration projects in Nevada. Once upon a time that Barrick bought, we all did very nicely with that. Thank you.
Yes,
And
sure.
and so now
Yeah.
you've got the next generation that's involved and working with you.
Well,
And
yeah, and that plaque you mentioned, they put that up. I never asked them, and they put it up to honor my father. And I go, he's not dead. Well, he's passed away now, but he was alive. And I said, why are you putting this there? They go, he's created jobs for us in the
right,
middle of nowhere, good paying jobs. And so I saw in the parking lot license plates from Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. They're coming back home to work in their hometown. So.
yeah, that is cool. Great story, and David, congratulations that more than most of the companies that I know, even though some of them deserve it and don't get it, you've deserved the attention you're getting in the market in the recent past, and I think a lot more to come. So,
Thank you.
congratulations. I'm going to look forward to the first quarter financials out the middle of next month,
May.
and we'll have to reconvene once that's out and count some more money that's coming in.
Thank you so
So.
much.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So, David, best of luck, and looking forward to the first mill feed from La Preciosa before too much
Me
longer.
too. Thank you.
Take care.
For much more of the National Investor's cutting-edge content and actionable investment opportunities, make sure to subscribe to Chris's free content at nationalinvestor.com. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel too. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.